One of the things I thought I would ask about in terms of the topic of like why ethics essentially within journalism or why like a professional standard is important. I'll just give an example of my own career in this sense, which is I used to, just like a lot of people, I think this is actually, in my opinion, why they don't learn this stuff and they just think like, what the hell, why am I being attacked for just doing my job? I think they really believe, right, that if you're just, I'm a good guy, like that's enough. Like, you know, you just try, I'm trying my best, you know, I'm not mean or anything. They don't understand like the reason you need these standards. I would actually describe it, no joke, like if you think of jobs where it's like actual physical labor where you have to have standards for safety reasons, like plumbing or fucking electricity or something, where obviously if you leave like just a cable out, someone could touch that, get electrocuted. If you don't put like the cover back on something, someone could touch a burning hot pipe, right? The reason you have those standards is to safeguard you and the people who are working with you. So what I would say is this, what I actually learned was it's not as simple as just like, right, this is just what people who did like a degree in journalism do to show you that they did the degree and you didn't, because they know, like, you know, it's not like some deep law. This stuff's actually really important. Like, I'll explain it this way. I actually found through the process of learning journalistic ethics and trying to see like, right, so I have to always do it through this like filter system. I can't like do it wrong in this way or take a shortcut here. What I found was it actually, the joke is, I thought initially that just protects the work. It protects you. It makes you always have to be legit and think, fuck, I can't do that though. In fact, one of the areas that's protected me the most is things like Twitter. Like, you'll notice I'm really careful, even though tweets are not my journalism. I do on Twitter try to hold that standard. That the famous example I always tell you is, I will never say Flusher cheated because I cannot know that. I will always say I think he cheated. And to a fan, they don't know the distinction, but I think that distinction is enormous. So the point I'm getting to is this, right? I'll give you an example right now. We're doing this recording just after the World Cup final, right? This is even something I've found safeguards your thinking, mate. So I always tell people when it comes to things like when I did those like world rankings, I used to do that like 3-month span with this criteria. I thought all the criteria up before I ever did one, because what I realized is if I don't do that, then since I'm still going to be fine-tuning it, there's going to be that time, isn't there, where maybe back in the day I was a fan of Titan and I'm like, well, I haven't quite defined the criteria. I could maybe squeeze them up to 5, or don't really like, I'll pick a random team. Flip side, maybe they go down to 9, because, you know, human nature, it's so tempting, isn't it, when you don't have the sort of strict rules. So I'll give you the example I was going to give today, because I think this is a great example, even though people won't like it, which is if you are a Lionel Messi fan. By the way, I'm a Lionel Messi fan. The problem I have is I just also despise the way a lot of Lionel Messi fans argue. Yes. So like a lot of fan bases, they annoy me. So it'll seem like I don't like the player. If you know me, I like all great players. It's nothing to do with that. But what I'll say is this. You'll have seen this. The second Argentina won, every comment was, that cements Messi as the GOAT. Now, the problem, and you'll know where I'm going with this, is if Portugal had won, would a single Messi fan say that cements Ronaldo as the GOAT? If the answer is no, by the way, then logically they never had actually a principle as to what cements he was the GOAT. Now, look, it's different if they'd have said Lionel Messi's playing this World Cup cement. That would be a very good way to like distinguish it, but they wouldn't do that. The point is, they were just waiting, and at the end, confirmation bias tells them he must be the GOAT because I like him and he's just won the big tournament, so that's it. So the point I was getting to, like at the beginning, is this isn't just some fuddy-duddy thing from the past where we're like, just do a tradition for no reason. I actually think, for real, it can actually change your whole life, understanding these ethics and principles. I actually think it makes you a better person in a way.
Yeah, and I agree with that. And I think as well, just like I say, it's super important to have guardrails, because it's very easy to let them slip when you're dealing with stories. You know, you have to look at these things from both sides. Like, somebody might be doing some very heinous shit, but if your source on that heinous shit, the person telling you, if it cannot be verified and it's not 100% reliable, then I can't publicly make the allegation. I can't roll the dice on someone's life, you know, like that's fucked up. Like, but unfortunately, as we know, we've seen plenty of people in the digital journalist space do this. And let me tell you, if it's something serious, if it's something important, then you can never wind that back. Like, you really can't. You can, you know, you can say, oh, I'm sorry, you know, I retract the story. Nah. The way it works now, the initial allegation gets all the noise, all the sound, all the fury, and the reality gets none of the attention, you know? And I've seen this, you know, around, you know, allegations that have been made about people's conduct online. I've seen it in real crazy things. Like, I mean, I interviewed Keemstar because I wanted to give him a platform with a credible journalist so he could essentially talk it out when he had said about that old, who's sadly passed away now, but the old RuneScape streamer that he falsely accused on Drama Alert of being a pedophile. I mean, he
fucking hell.
Yeah, he said, you know, it wasn't his story, and he's just the host of the show, and he just read it, and they fired the news writer that researched it. It was literally just based on looking on 2 pictures. That was it. And you know, like that old guy's life was ruined. I mean, you can't even imagine. He was just a dude in his, I believe, in his late 50s at the time. He passed away this year, I think, with a tumor in his early 60s. And you know, he was just a nice old dude that streamed RuneScape, that was kind of remarkable in the streaming space because of his age. But he played RuneScape since the game had come out. And, you know, and he was just a kindly old man who just liked to stream video games to a very small audience. And Keemstar blew him up saying he was a pedophile. And, you know, you can't even imagine what that does to someone. And it's like all the apologies in the world are never going to make up for that trauma. I mean, even up until the last time he talked about it, he said, like, that's the worst thing that ever happened in his life. You know, imagine that. You know, like, so, yeah, the guardrails that you put up will protect you from doing accidental cruelty, inexplicably horrible things. It'll prevent you from doing harm to people that don't deserve it. And the sad reality is, yes, you might occasionally have to watch bad people get away with doing bad things that you've got a hunch and a gut feeling about that they did. But you're a journalist. You chose this. A hunch and a gut feeling cannot be enough to impugn somebody's reputation. So I think, you know, like journalistic ethics in general, I think if you apply that thinking to other aspects of your life, it'll definitely be, it can only be a good thing. I take it super seriously. I never color outside of the lines on a story. I've had to let big ones slip through my fingers. But at the end of the day, like, I feel that's why I've got the record I've got. That's why I've done the work I've done. And yeah, I think unfortunately that this next generation of untrained, untrained, unconcerned clout chasers, I think you're going to see some pretty big misses coming from them, which are going to have, you know, broad, wide-reaching consequences for whoever they write about.
See more cool, funny, interesting clips based on topics from my content? Well, subscribe to this channel then, or, you know, be a pleb and don't.